Right now, you are doing something an animal does. You are breathing without thinking about it. Your heart is beating on its own. Your eyes are scanning this screen the same way your ancestors scanned the horizon for movement millions of years ago. You never noticed, but your body never forgot. Here is the part that should unsettle you. Every single thing you think makes you modern, your routines, your instincts, your emotions, your social behaviors, has a biological origin so ancient it predates language, predates tools, predates the concept of a self. You are not a person who occasionally acts like an animal. You are an animal who occasionally acts like a person. And the difference between those two ideas is everything. Take the way you just reacted to that statement. Maybe a small defensiveness, maybe a flicker of amusement, maybe you immediately started forming a counter-argument. That reaction, that fast, automatic, emotionally charged response to a perceived threat to your identity is called the amygdala hijack, first described by psychologist Daniel Goleman in his 1995 work on emotional intelligence. It is your brain's threat detection system firing before your rational mind even has time to form a thought. It evolved to save you from predators. Today, it activates when someone challenges your worldview. Same circuit, different jungle. Your brain is not a new machine. It is an ancient machine running new software, and the ancient parts are still very much in charge. Neuroscientist Paul MacLean introduced an influential model of the brain's layered architecture. The idea that you are carrying 3 brains inside your skull, each one built on top of the last, each one older and more primitive than the one above it. The deepest layer is often called the reptilian brain. It controls breathing, heart rate, the fight or flight response, territorial behavior, and the impulse to establish dominance hierarchies. You share this structure with lizards, with fish, with creatures that crawled out of shallow water 300 million years ago. Above that sits the limbic system, the mammalian brain. This is where emotion lives. Fear, joy, attachment, grief, the desperate need to belong to a group. Every time you feel a wave of loneliness or a rush of warmth when someone you love walks into a room, that is the mammalian brain doing what it evolved to do, keeping you bonded to your pack, because in the wild, separation from the group meant death. And then at the top, the neocortex, the newest layer, the one that writes poetry and does calculus and tells itself it is in control. The problem is that the neocortex is constantly being overruled by the 2 layers beneath it. You know this is true. You have made decisions you knew were bad. You have felt things you couldn't logic away. You have been in an argument and known, intellectually, that you were wrong, but felt the anger keep rising anyway. That is not a character flaw. That is a 300 million year old operating system running a 21st century life. Now go deeper. Go all the way to the basics. You flinch at sudden sounds. Every human does. It doesn't matter how safe your environment is. It doesn't matter that you have never been attacked. A sharp, unexpected sound, a car backfiring, a book dropping, someone shouting your name, produces a full-body startle response in under 1/10 of a second, faster than conscious thought. This reflex, studied extensively by researchers including Michael Davis at Yale, traces back to a basic survival circuit so ancient it exists in virtually all vertebrates. Your nervous system never learned to tell the difference between a snapping branch and a slamming door. It responds the same way to both. Because for hundreds of thousands of years, the cost of not reacting was death. You are still wired for a world that no longer exists. Think about the foods you crave: fat, salt, sugar. These are not personal weaknesses. They are ancient biological imperatives. For most of human existence, these nutrients were rare, precious, and directly tied to survival. Your body evolved to seek them aggressively and to feel deep pleasure when it found them. That drive is still inside you, unchanged, operating in a world where fat, salt, and sugar are available at every corner at almost zero cost. The mismatch between the ancient craving and the modern environment is the mechanism behind most dietary struggles, a point made clearly by evolutionary biologist Daniel Lieberman in his landmark book on the story of the human body. The problem is not your willpower. The problem is that your biology is optimized for scarcity and you live in abundance. The same principle applies to your social behavior. You do not just want to belong, you need to belong. In a biological, cellular sense. Research by John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago demonstrated over decades of study that social isolation activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. Being excluded from a group is not just emotionally uncomfortable. It registers in the body as a genuine threat to survival, because for most of human history it was. When you feel rejected, your cortisol spikes, your immune function drops, your sleep degrades. These are not metaphors. They are measurable physiological changes, the same cascade your body runs when you are physically endangered. Social rejection and physical threat produce overlapping biological responses because, evolutionarily, they were the same thing. To be cast out of the group was to be left alone in the dark with no fire and no shelter, and every predator in the territory knowing exactly where you were. You carry that knowledge in your cells. Watch yourself in a group. Watch how quickly you read the room, how immediately you sense tension between two people who haven't spoken yet, how instinctively you adjust your tone, your posture, your words based on who is watching. This is not social anxiety. This is social cognition. The extraordinary ability to model other minds, to predict behavior, to navigate complex group dynamics. And it is the reason your species survived long enough to become a species. Primatologist Robin Dunbar proposed that the neocortex expanded in human ancestors not to process tools or landscape but to manage the complexity of social groups. Bigger brain, more relationships, more survival. Your intelligence evolved for people, not for problems. And yet, here is the counterintuitive part. The part that changes how you see everything. All of this, the startle reflex, the social need, the craving for fat and sugar, the amygdala hijack, the territorial instinct. None of it is a flaw. None of it is something that needs to be fixed or overcome or suppressed. It is the record of every challenge your ancestors survived. Every one of these drives is a solution to a problem that once threatened your lineage's existence. You are not broken. You are deeply, exquisitely adapted. Just to a world that is mostly gone. The tension you feel in modern life, the anxiety, the restlessness, the sense that something is slightly wrong even when everything looks fine, is often the friction between an ancient body and a modern context. You were built for movement, and you sit still for 8 hours. You were built for intermittent scarcity, and you face constant abundance. You were built for a tribe of 50 to 150 people, and you now navigate thousands of loose connections with hundreds of strangers. You were built for darkness and firelight at night, and you bathe yourself in blue spectrum screens until the moment you try to sleep, suppressing the melatonin your body still needs to produce, confusing a circadian rhythm that evolved over millions of years in just a few decades. None of this is your fault. All of it is your inheritance. The question is not whether you are still an animal. You are. The more useful question is what you do once you know it. Because awareness unchanges the relationship. When you feel the pull of the group, the desperate need for approval, the fear of being different or excluded, you can recognize it as ancient rather than absolute. You can feel the craving and understand where it comes from without automatically obeying it. You can notice the startle, the anger, the tribal instinct activating, and create just enough distance between the signal and the response to choose something different. That gap, that tiny space between stimulus and response, is the newest thing about you. And it is the only thing that is genuinely new. Viktor Frankl described it as the last human freedom, the ability to choose your attitude in any set of circumstances. But even that capacity has a biological basis. The prefrontal cortex, the most recently evolved region of the human brain, the one that allows for planning, reflection, impulse control, and the consideration of consequences. It is powerful, and it is constantly in negotiation with every older, louder circuit beneath it. You are not separate from the animal kingdom. You are its most complicated chapter. You are the creature that evolved just enough awareness to look back at its own nature and ask why. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything. No other animal you know of has ever done it. But it is important that you do not confuse the asking with the answer. Knowing you have instincts does not mean you transcend them. Understanding the amygdala does not stop it from firing. The ancient systems in your brain do not care what you know. They care what you do. And they are very, very good at making you do it before you realize you have. So here is where this lands. Tonight, when your heart rate climbs over something small, when you feel the pull toward sugar or comfort, or the screen's glow, when you feel excluded and it registers like pain, when you lock eyes with a stranger and look away first, pause, just for a second. Notice what just happened in your body. Name it if you can, not to judge it, not to fix it, just to see it clearly. Because the animal inside you is not your enemy. It is the reason you are here. Every fight it ever won. Every danger it ever survived. Every cold night it ever made it through. That is written into the body you are living in right now. Right now, you are doing something an animal does. And for the first time, you are watching yourself do it.